Going to be getting into the best bets in NBA DFS today. Going to touch on a couple of stacks that I like. And then we did just get news that Ja Morant is currently questionable. Jaren Jackson Jr., I'm curious to see what his props are going to be as well. That's information I didn't have prior to the start of this video. Now let's go ahead and get into it. All right, everyone, so let's get into the PrizePicks board for today. Now, it's been one of those situations in which they have been responding pretty quick to some of the favorable odds that are out there. Now, NBA-wise, man, it looks like we're going to get some good stacking opportunities. And it really just depends on which players they make available. Right after I finished yesterday's video, they added in, or during as well, they added in a bunch of player props for players I didn't think we were going to get. Skylar Mays is one of them. There's a bunch of other players as well. So Jalen Duren was someone that popped up. So it will be interesting to see if we get those. We don't have those just yet. I will be getting into a couple of MLB props and NHL props, and then kind of doing a deep dive into NBA because I do think we are going to have the opportunity to do some stacks today. So let's go ahead and get into NHL to start. All right, so we have two that are favorable props, or just one actually. Let's sort by NHL first. So just one. Okay, so minus 138 to get over 2.5 shots on goal. I have seen this one fluctuate between minus 140 and pretty much minus 137 throughout the day. And so I'm assuming that's just because of other sportsbooks props are coming in. Now we do have a couple that probably should be a little bit higher than they currently are. Average sportsbook line has this one says a push at 2.5 shots on goal. Same thing here, basically a push at 2.5 shots on goal. So most likely, gonna get 2 shots on goal for both of these two. Those are fine. Don't need to make them though. But the best one we're getting here, and we can see throughout the past 5 games, he's been able to get there. And 4 out of the past 5 games, he's either been slightly over it or, close to getting over. You guys know I kind of like to see that consistency there is just close to getting over or getting over. And now get into the MLB props. Once again, this is going to be something that's updating throughout the day as well. I had a couple pop in there that were like minus 145 odds. So the most recent one would be Logan Webb over 4.5 strikeouts at minus 137. Oh, this might be live before I get done with this, but we can kind of see it has been dealing a little bit. Not a bad one. Hopefully I can get this one out prior to it starting. Probably not. Only 21 minutes. It typically takes about 20 minutes for me to export and then upload the video. So but maybe it'll get pushed back. I don't know what's going on here. 2 different start times. Then let's see any other ones that we're getting here that are kind of worthwhile. I mean, not really. And what's crazy is like we just do not get underbets that much in MLB or NHL. It's more or less just NBA, or like they're not aligning. And so yeah, nothing else really elsewhere either. Interesting that's that tight right now. Obviously this updates throughout the day, especially with the afternoon games. If you guys are a site member, definitely worth checking back later on today. Let's get into NBA because I think that's where it's a fun slate. And freaking Corey Kispert, he ruined an NBA stack yesterday because he couldn't make a basket. Shot attempts were there, but I ended up with Johnny Davis, Giannis, Lopez, like over fantasy score, and then Corey Kispert with Shy. So it was a 5-leg bet, and Kispert couldn't make a basket. That was unfortunate. But I do think there's a good stacking opportunity today in general. Like the Nets are banged up, so even if it's a blowout, they're going to be forced to get their players some minutes. This Pacers versus Knicks game is highly appealing to me because it's a high-scoring game, relatively speaking, and it's a close-scoring game, and both teams are going to be without a bunch of their starters. So very interesting for me there. This spread for the Bucks is definitely an interesting one. This kind of tells me that they might think that someone on the Bucks is going to sit other than the players that are currently listed out. And the players that are currently listed out are Pat Connaughton, game time decision, and Grayson Allen is out. So to me, that line seems kind of fishy. So I'm kind of thinking maybe Brooke, maybe Giannis, maybe Drew sit, because otherwise that line just seems weird. And I know like the Bulls are a good team. Don't get me wrong there, but the Bucks have been kind of playing some great basketball lately. We got Toronto versus Boston. Like, we just have some appealing games. So first, before we get into that, let's see if we have any great props for NBA numbers wise. This is interesting. Jakob Poeltl over points, rebounds, and assists. Okay, this is set at 24.5 on PrizePicks. The average sportsbook line has it set at 25.5, and they are favoring the over. It's kind of a push, but still we're getting a full point there. That's pretty big. Killian Hayes as well, another one that's kind of favored as a push, but it's favored as a push as 13.2. PrizePicks has it set at 12.5. So another kind of favorable one that we're getting there. We continue on, another Jakob Poeltl one. Pascal Siakam one as well. So maybe is there the potential that we could do maybe Jakob Poeltl and Pascal Siakam? Probably not. We'd probably want to choose one or the other, but it does seem like Jakob Poeltl is the one that's being disrespected the most by sportsbook. And then kind of the biggest difference that we're getting prop line difference wise would be Sabonis minus a half. So the average sportsbook line has a little bit lower than PrizePicks does, by a half, but they're saying it's basically a push for rebounds, but still not a terrible one. All right, now let's get into kind of trying to do some game game theory based plays. I mentioned that I really like this New York versus Indy game. And now the reason why I like that is both teams are going to be without kind of significant key contributors. We know that Julius Randle is going to be out. That was already established earlier. But we also know that Jalen Brunson is going to be out, which it actually makes me mad because Emmanuel Quickley was actually undervalued a little bit to start the day. Now he's been bumped up because we know that those two players are out. And so if we look at the per 36 production with Jalen Brunson and with Julius Randle off the court, it is Quickley that kind of gets a big old boost. 9% bump in usage and averages about 6.1 more fantasy points per 36. He does average 37 or so fantasy points per 36. And so the biggest question would be, how many minutes is he going to get? And how much does this better matchup help? I think the best prop that we could potentially do would actually just be points, rebounds, and assists. But at the same time, this is a very high number as well. And the reason I would want to do this instead of fantasy score is because with those players off the court, we do know that he's most likely going to get 36 minutes or so. So the per 36 numbers should be pretty accurate. He averages around 3 turnovers per 36. So that's minus 3 points. Giannis almost didn't get his fantasy score prop because he had like 7 turnovers. And so that's always a worry. And he only gets, Emmanuel Quickley only averages about 1 steal per 36 as well. So we're not like really gaining anything by targeting fantasy score. And so if we are trying to use him in this match, this is where it gets tricky because he averages 21.2 points per 36 and 6 rebounds. So is that 27? And then he only averages 5.3 assists. So is that 32? It's not that many, right? But given the matchup with the Pacers, I do expect him to be able to have a better game, especially with Brunson out. But this one's tight. I just want to make that clear. Like the only way I'll be using Quickley is in a stack. And I do think there is the potential for us to run on a stack. Now, I am very interested to see if Mitchell Robinson does get a minutes boost at all. Just looking at the data, it wouldn't suggest that he would get a minutes bump with Julius Randle and with Jalen Brunson off the court. Mitchell Robinson has been playing well recently in limited minutes. We look at the last 2 games, 26 and 22 minutes, had good games in those. So, if we knew for sure that he was going to get even 26 minutes, I'd feel good about him as a prop. Just don't have that. So I probably wouldn't bet him. And so that kind of leaves us with a weird one. It's like, do we want to bet on Quentin Grimes, whose minutes have definitely been there the last few games, and obviously he does get a good matchup as well? I mean, maybe. It's only okay. He averages 16.5 points per 36, and he might be someone that actually gets more minutes because we can see recently he has a couple games in the 40s and then a couple of games 38 minutes or so. And the lowest amount of minutes was 36 over his last 5 games. So if those minutes are going to continue to be there in this appealing matchup, I do think he gets there, but he's not exactly someone that gets turnovers or gets steals. That's kind of a worry, but he does average 3.4 assists and 5.2 rebounds and 16.5 points. So if he doesn't have any turnovers, he should be able to get the over fantasy score based off of those numbers, especially given the match. So one of the players I'm curious on if we're going to get any props on is going to be Josh Hart as well. Just would be a decent one. And especially if RJ Barrett is ruled out, it does seem like RJ Barrett is going to play. That's what the reports were suggesting earlier today. And then I do wonder if we're going to get any Obi Toppin props. He does have the second most minutes with Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle off the court. Does average about 16.6 fantasy points per 30, or real life points per 36, averages 28 fantasy points per 36. So if we get a prop for him in this matchup, that'd be good as well. Now let's flip it over and go into the Pacers. The Pacers we know are going to be without Tyrese Haliburton. Okay, we got to get news on Miles Turner. Currently questionable, but there's rumors that he might be shut down for the last 3 games. So I'm kind of leaning towards him sitting. And so if he sits, we kind of know the players to be targeting. It would be Andrew Nembhard, who's been playing extremely well lately. And look at the shot attempts, 16, 15, 16, 14. And that's with Haliburton off the court there. The assists have been there as well. And the turnovers have kind of been there as well. We need to get some more steals out of him if we're going to do like fantasy score. But the per 36 production has been pretty good. Averages 14.5 points per 36, 3.8 rebounds, and 7.8 assists. Let's take a peek at his assist props because that does seem to be something that we could do. So 6 assists. That seems very low for him. Okay, we look at the last 3 games. He's been there or gained the over. And then we also look at the Dallas game. He was 1 off again there. So as long as those minutes continue to be there for him, should be solid, okay? The issue is that we know he's not going to get 36 minutes, so the per 36 number is saying 7.8. It's probably closer to 6.5. But still a good prop. Then let's see if we can actually do maybe points, rebounds, and assists for him. Yeah, I would say we could. Just based off of his points and assists, he should be able to get there. And then we tack on about 3.8. And if we adjust that for like the 31 minutes or so that he's projected to get. And let's actually pull up his minutes. Here's the prop. Pretty good prop that we're getting here. Minus 120 to get over 21.9. And PrizePicks has it set at 21.5, projected to get over as well. Okay, I wanted to see the minutes, 32 minutes. So if he gets that, he should be able to get over. This is probably one of my favorite ones on the day. And that's kind of why I'm breaking it down this way, because I did not see this one being my favorite one. I thought it was solid, but no, it's looking like it's probably going to be my favorite one. And guys, the whole point of stacking is we are trying to increase our chances of getting 5 out of 5 or 6 out of 6 by chasing a specific game that seems exploitable. And so let's see here, Benedict Mathurin. If we get news that Miles Turner and Halliburton are going to sit, Mathurin is also an interesting play as well. Per 36 points is 25 points per 36, 5 rebounds, and only 1.4 assists. Per 36 fantasy score, 33. Now, once again, I wanted to look at Mathurin's minutes, 34.9, and that's the biggest worry is like how many minutes will he get? And so he has been someone that's been getting heavy minutes, 33, 35, 41, 38. He got into foul trouble in the last game against Cleveland. That's why he only had 33 minutes, and he still was able to get 12 shot attempts off. That's pretty good. Against OKC, randomly didn't have that many shot attempts, even though he shot it efficiently. That's pretty strange. But like, I think we can actually predict 2 out of the 3 Pacer players to get over. The third one being Jordan Nwora. Now, I feel less comfortable with him, but his per 36 numbers are good as well. 19.1 points, 6.8 rebounds, and 3 assists per 36 with Halliburton and with Turner off the court. I'm actually curious to see his fantasy score because he is someone that does average a steal per 36. So 28.5, 24. Yeah, I'd probably just go points and assists then at that point. But fantasy score has been much closer to that as well. Either way, this game does seem appealing. And so I'll try to show you guys a stack that I'm thinking about here. So like a stack that I would see would be doing the 3 Pacer players that I feel really good about. And it depends, like we might get some better ones like Isaiah Jackson if Turner's out, it's not terrible. And then Quentin Grimes, if those minutes are continue to be heavily there, he should be able to get over fantasy score. I don't love that. The next ones do feel a lot tighter. That seems to be where we're getting the biggest risk. Once again, my favorite one is going to be Nembhard. And then the next game that I think could be worth stacking is going to be this Detroit versus Brooklyn game. Now, we did see the game over and under. It is a game that is projected to be a blowout. That's the unfortunate side. But with how banged up Detroit is, they're going to be forced to give in some players a lot of minutes. Like Bagley is currently out. Bogdanovic still out. Basically, all the players that were projected to be out last game are going to be out again. Bagley, Bogdanovic, Burks, Diallo, Magruder, and Stewart. Those players are all out. Obviously, Cade Cunningham is out as well. With that, we actually saw Detroit run out an interesting line yesterday. It was Jalen Duren and also James Wiseman together in the starting lineup. And that's what the projection is today. And had we known that was going to be the starting lineup, I probably wouldn't have been on Bam for like points, rebounds, and assists. His rebounds were really down yesterday. And so the cover boy failed me, but I would say it's because he was going against 2 centers. So obviously it's going to be harder for him to get rebounds then. And Wiseman didn't play the last like 5 minutes of the game because he got a foul and then he got a tech. And I think the coach just didn't like that. But once again, I'm waiting for some Jalen Duren props. It seems like a daily thing where I want the Duren props and we're just not getting them. The nice thing about Brooklyn is the fact that they always seem too cheap. We could do Malik Beasley over fantasy score, especially in that matchup against Detroit. Cameron Johnson, if we want to use that one, we can. Nick Claxton, given this matchup, should be able to get the over here as well. Maybe a couple more blocked. Finney Smith can certainly get there as well. And Spencer Dinwiddie could easily get there. Like, they're all a little bit too undervalued, the Brooklyn Nets, especially given this matchup with Detroit. Like, the clear-cut play in this game, if we get it, would be Jalen Duren, who got 35 minutes in the last game. And so, if you look over his last 3 games, he's had a couple games where he's gone over 30 minutes. And just given how banged up they are with Marvin Bagley off the court, if you look at the last game in this scenario, he got a lot of minutes as well. Duren per 36, and he got 36 minutes last night, so maybe he gets that again. Probably not, probably like 32, but his per 36 numbers with those players off the court, 16.1 points, 13.9 rebounds, and 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. So if we are getting James Wiseman at 27.5 for a fantasy score, I would assume Duren is going to be the exact same. And if that happens, he's highly appealing because he's just a better player than Wiseman, according to the per 36 production. And then if we are looking to stack this game, I don't mind like Hayes or Ivy, but I'm probably not touching that. I mean, Ivy has been the better of the 2 players lately, so we could potentially do that. So it'd be like probably Ivy and Duren for a stack, and then maybe Claxton, Bridges, and probably Dinwiddie. All right, so now I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit for these next few games because for the most part, we're still waiting on some injury information. Like I said, I wouldn't be shocked to see one of the like Bucks players sit. At the same time, I really don't mind Giannis over fantasy score if he's going to be active. Going against the Bulls, it is a game that is projected to stay close. Thus, he should be able to get over the fantasy score. 53 is kind of cheap. And what I mean by that is if we take what would be his 5x, which is kind of what on average that PrizePicks gives for a prop, like if we use DraftKings salary, DraftKings has it set at 11.4. They're pretty good with their price. At this evaluation, PrizePicks currently has this fantasy score prop actually set at 4.7. It's not much. So yeah, in theory, Giannis should be able to get over. And like I said, last game, yeah, 8 turnovers, guys. 8 turnovers, and he only had, I shouldn't say only, but he had 2 steals and a block. And he was still able to get over his fantasy score. And we can see the difference there. 63 on DraftKings, 57. Okay, that's how big of a difference turnovers can be. And so it's really, if he cuts down his turnovers, he should be able to get. Then I'm actually curious as to people's thoughts on the Russell Westbrook game. Is he going to play well today? I'm a big Westbrook fan. I have no idea how well he's going to play because once again, kind of given how DraftKings is valuing him here, his fantasy score should be around 45, given this price point that DraftKings is giving them. And so we're getting it a lot cheaper. The issue that I've had with Westbrook is the rebounds haven't been there, but he has really made up for that recently with a lot of assists, and assists are more valuable on PrizePicks. So if those assists continue to be there, he should be able to go off and have a good game. I'm just curious, do you guys like Westbrook tonight? I'm struggling with it. And like at the same time, if we were doing that, what's his assist prop? 8. And if we're doing that, we could just do over that. Let's see points as well. It almost feel like that would almost be the better move. Nah, we'll go fantasy score. And so these are going to be my favorite bets on the day. If I had to just pick 2, which is kind of what I always tell people to do, would be these 2. Okay, and that's just because bankroll management is a lot easier when you're only doing 2. You know, if you have a bad day one day, then you could just double down the next day and kind of continue to do that. And if you're hitting at, over, let's just say that not including tacos, the best bettors hit like 53 to 54% of their bets. Now, including tacos, if you are continually hitting them, I think you can get to the around 60% mark, which is what I've been able to do with these bets of the day. Obviously, having the tacos in there where they're hitting a majority of the time, that helps. But that's kind of my strategy is better bankroll management when you're doing 2 slip bets. And then just Giannis, it could be tight there. He's just been playing so well. And then Westbrook, I just like that against that in that game. If he's going to be getting, let's say 8 assists, that's about 12 fantasy points just there. Let's just say he gets around 14 points, then it's about 26. Maybe gets a couple of rebounds, that's 29, gets a block and a steal, could get okay, and that's having the projections pretty low. But that's all for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the coverage. It is a tight slate as it sits right now, but it is one obviously throughout the day. It's going to be updating. Did come out with a Masters prop video as well. If you guys want to check that out, that's available on the channel right now. All right, let's have a good slate. If you guys want access to the 9 to 5 PrizePicks cheat sheet, is available as part of the 9 to 5 membership for $10 a month. Let's have a good slate, and as always, let's keep cash.